Hey folks, welcome to the Wednesday show. It is October the 1st, Halloween season, which means we can wear silly hats and have a good time doing all our many things. So I hope you guys are having a great day. Welcome to Bantha Fodder, delivering you the manure mill. It's my variety hour show. First thing I'm going to talk about, the death of Las Vegas. So, for those of you who don't know, I lived in Las Vegas in the early 2010s. So I moved there, I believe in 2011, and I left in 2013. So I was there a little bit over 2 years, if my memory serves me correctly. I think it was actually about 2 years and like 3 months, maybe. And then I moved back to California, and then eventually now I live in Texas. But so I lived in Las Vegas for 2 years, and that was a very interesting 2 years. Now, since I've left Las Vegas, there's been a lot of people saying that Las Vegas is dead. The Las Vegas experience is just over. Las Vegas is not fun anymore. And in fact, my brother-in-law went back there. Of course, he was in Las Vegas too. He moved back to Las Vegas, or he didn't move back to Las Vegas. He visited Las Vegas. And it's like, they nickel and dime you on pretty much everything now. Like, you have to pay for parking. So when I lived there, you did not have to pay for parking. You, in fact, got to park wherever you wanted to for free. There wasn't paid parking anywhere that I can remember at all. Maybe if you were at like a sporting event at UNLV, they might have been like a paid parking lot. But I remember people walking in off the strip. You could park at, one of the hotels on the strip and then walk over to UNLV. It's right off the strip. I'd walked into the campus many times. I've never paid for parking. So, we never paid for parking. And there was a bunch of little things like that made Vegas feel like this really cheap city to live in, which was good because I was basically broke at the time. I didn't have a lot of money. So being able to, experience or see lots of things without having to dish out a ton of money was a big thing for me. So free parking meant that I could go to one of the casinos. There was often free entertainment at the casinos. You might have a band playing playing in a room, playing in one of the gaming rooms. You'd have lots of things like that. There was like free acrobats at Circus, because that's off the strip. That's on Fremont Street in old Las Vegas. But paying for parking to me was like a big sign of like, ooh, things are not what they were. Now, are things going worse or are things going better? Like, are things so good that they can just rip people off with free parking? Is there so much demand for Vegas that they can rip people off for free parking? I found out there's more than that, right? There's resort fees. So there'd be like a $50 resort fee for your hotel rather than just having a hotel room. And all of these little things, like you never get comp drinks, even if you're gambling or whatever. So we used to do a thing where we would go down to like the Luxor and hanging out at the Luxor. They had a big sports bet at the Luxor with like all of these recliners, and they had all these TVs up with everything you could imagine. So we could go there at 2 a.m. and there'd be like Australian rugby on, and you could place bets on it. And so you could place a bet for virtually no money. Like, just, I don't know which of these I'll bet against the spread on this rugby team. And you could just sit there and you would maybe get free drinks. Now, the casino's not really making that much money off. They just would do that because it's an empty room. There's nothing else to do. They would comp all the drinks. And the whole idea of comping drinks was to get people loosened up to spend more money. Used to have a lot lower blackjack tables. They changed the rules of blackjack, I found out. I'm like, what? Someone was trying to explain to me different blackjack rules. And I was like, blackjack's blackjack. It's like, yeah, but people figured out how to not lose all their money playing blackjack. So we made it harder to keep your money. Blackjack was always a good one to get people to lose all their money at, because virtually no one understands how to play blackjack. They might know the method. Oh, you do this method and you can win at blackjack. but virtually nobody has enough money to win at blackjack. As weird as that sounds. So when you say I'm going to play $5 blackjack, that's $5 per hand. So you're betting $5 to $10 or something, because you might split or something like that. To play $5 blackjack, you actually need to have $5,000 on hand. So your bankroll needs to be like 100 times bigger than the bet. And the reason is you can lose 20 hands in a row, and it's not really a statistical anomaly. And you can win 20 hands in a row. So you get these you can get these streaks where you're losing, and it's not like bad luck or something like that. It's the way that works, even when you're using like a system where you are totally betting the odds. You can lose enough hands in a row. The casinos know this, so the way that they always set it up was you had, someone would bring $100 to the $5 blackjack table. They'd win, lose, and they'd be out of money. And when they go bust, the casino keeps all the money. So even though the odds are officially some sort of percentage, the real odds are 100% in favor of the house, because once somebody busts, the house keeps all their money, and the house doesn't have to pay out anything after that. So blackjack was always a big winner. And the fact that they had to change the rules, kind of change the odds for it, and I don't remember what they are precisely. I guess you could look them up. It's like, that's a bad sign. Vegas is dead if they're having to or change the rules of craps. Craps was always like, no one wins at craps, you know? A lot of these games, like, people don't win at them. They go bust, and then they lose all their money, which is why the casino puts ATM machines in there, by the way. The ATM machine could, sometimes it has a service fee of like $5. It could have a service fee of $0, and it would pay for itself. And the reason is because you want to encourage people to keep getting money out. Keep getting that money out. Keep them at the tables, keep playing, keep them going bust over and over again. Because once you go bust, you're out of the game. Anyway, that digression aside, all sorts All right, we'll see if it reconnects now. Not sure what happened there. And a couple little technical difficulties. All right, I was talking about Las Vegas. So that probably ruined all the content that I had for tonight, was that little stream interruption, because it is it's really bad when you have a whole thing and you're flowing through it and you're getting all your points and you don't know what people saw beforehand. So let's talk about the death of Las Vegas. If you haven't seen it, I'm not sure where I was when everything died, so we'll just go from wherever. So when I lived in Las Vegas, everything was cheap. Everything was comped. You could park for free. You could get drinks for free. Yeah. Okay, so there we go. I can hear typing. Okay, so maybe the audio didn't die, just the video. Who knows? Anyway, my whole spiel is freaking ruined. It's all ruined. Okay. I did some research on why I think Vegas died compared to when I lived there. When I lived there, it was cheap. It was fun. It was not expensive to access the entertainment. The gambling was very accessible. If you knew what you were doing, you could not lose money gambling. That is, if you knew what you're doing, most people don't. The house makes their money by having people go bust, basically, is that they might have a good method for winning blackjack, but once they get to zero, they stop playing. And in reality, keeping a method or being good at a game is having enough money to persist through those streaks of losing, which are going to happen. So having a $5,000 bankroll to play $5 blackjack with a really precise method, that's what you actually have to do. And same thing actually with poker. Most people go into play like $5, maybe a $5 blind poker, and they've got a couple of $100 they're betting. They actually need like $10,000 or $15,000. Like, you need a much bigger bankroll than you realize. And professional gamblers know this, and card sharks know this, which is how they make money. The way that people would make money, and I don't do this, and in fact, I'm glad I didn't really do this. because now I have, moral opinions about it. But going into tables like in the casinos where, there's a lot of tourists and taking their money because they're not good at poker and they don't have enough money to like lose more than 4 or 5 hands, that is, you're just taking money from them, and it's not fun to lose all your money to a card shark. So, but that's what card sharks would do. They had a big bankroll. That's how they managed to do it. Okay. Yeah, rule changes is where we were at right after ATM machines. Yeah, so they changed the rules. I'm like, this is going to be bad. Things are doing bad in Vegas. So I did some research on what's going on. And so there's a couple things. Number one is private equity, right? So casinos started changing their arrangement. So rather than being all enclosed private corporations, they sold and then paid leases and had shareholders and things like that. So that fundamentally changes the way that you run the business so that it has to be more transparent. It can't be as opaque as it was 20 or 30 years ago. And you also run into the problem where you can't just ride out a bad season. This is a problem with publicly traded companies. Is like if you have a bad couple of years, it's crisis time. You can't just ride it out. Whereas with a private corporation, businesses, this happens with businesses. Sometimes you have a bad couple of years. I've had it with the writing business, multiple years. Sometimes you have a really bad year because of things that aren't under your control. There's a pandemic, so no one's buying audiobooks. There's a pandemic, so people are buying different kinds of books. They're not buying the same things that they were. AI shows up and makes it so nobody can buy their books, and everybody's going to Barnes & Noble now instead of buying on Amazon because there's just no way to find good books on Amazon. So these sorts of things happen in the business, and you have to kind of ride them out and figure out how to adjust to them. But when you're publicly traded, like if I was a publicly traded corporation, all of a sudden CEOs would be getting fired because the revenues would dip, and it's like, you have to fix that. You have to come up with ways to fix that. So that's number one, is them being more public and having public equity involved in some of these, right? But there's a deeper thing. There's a deeper thing that I found out about too that explains a lot of the fees. So you guys remember the pandemic. Hopefully you remember it. If you don't remember it, good for you. But yeah, the mafia ran the Vegas better than corporations did because they could write out those on Restream at all. Nope, maybe not. Okay. All right. So what was I saying? Well, I mean, technical difficulties may put a stop to this stream. It's nothing that I'm doing, just so you guys know. It doesn't look frozen on YouTube for me. Oh, yes, the pandemic. I'm just going to do this spiel as a video later and just put it up. Okay, I'm going to do all the topics. So I'm going to do the topics live as best we can and respond to the chat. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And I'll just do video on demands for all of these topics. I'll just, I'll fire up the camera or I'll go out on the porch and talk about this shit later. So the pandemic. Well, what happened in the pandemic is people stopped going to Las Vegas because they stopped going, anywhere. They stopped doing anything. So Las Vegas went from one of its best seasons in like 2019 to its worst ever in 2020 because people stopped traveling. Now, the thing is that it's the coof cough, and now we have string problems. Anyway. This is normally be a time where you try to get your customers back in. You don't want people to lose any kind of feeling like they should be stopping Vegas and stopping what they're doing. You want them to be coming often. You want to habituate them to coming to casinos and stuff. So that should have been the time where you like drop the prices. You start subsidizing the flights more heavily. You get all those flights out of California and Texas that are cheap. There used to be these really cheap plane flights. You could fly into Vegas from Fresno for like $50. you could fly from like San Antonio or from Houston to Vegas for like $100. And these were great, right? These were great little ways to get people from the really populous states into a place where they could gamble and spend their money. And if you're really frugal, you don't have to gamble. So like, my girlfriend at the time is my wife now. She would come into town and we could basically spend no money and have a lot of fun in Vegas, or like just spend money on one thing, like go to one thing. And that would be all the money that you'd need to spend. It was so cheap to live there. I digress. So that would be the point where you do that. However, there was a problem, and that problem was the stimulus checks and all of the stimulus packages. And when people get a big check of cash, they can do lots of different things with it. If you are a very responsible person, you imagine the things that you're going to do with that stimulus check. I can tell you what we did with ours. I paid taxes with it. I paid my income taxes with it. So that was really helpful for me to be able to have a year where I didn't have to pay income taxes. That was cool, right? Because I basically paid my taxes. Other people got $2,000 and they may have never had $2,000 cash, or having $2,000 cash on hand would be really, really rare for them. So they did things like buy guitars. So I found out this is that the guitar industry, the industry of building guitars, had this huge peak in like 2020, 2021, where people were just spending all their money on, they were at home, like they were spending their money on gear. They were buying new guitars and they were paying full price for them. They weren't haggling. They were paying retail, like full $2,500 for their guitars. They got a check for $2,500. Here's all these $2,500 guitars. People were buying guitars. So, people would buy a PS5. Well, there's a class of people that they also made up companies like freecashmoneyonline.com, and they got loans from the government. And what did they do with this money? They flew to Vegas with this money. Now, this class of people, I'm not going to give you any demographic information. You already know it. And you know it because you've seen the videos. The Wynn in Las Vegas had to sue a bunch of people for having a brawl in their lobby and hurting their brand. Because what they see is when people see these things online, they see a video of a bunch of people of a certain variety brawling in the lobby, and they're like, well, the Wynn Las Vegas is a trashy shithole joint, isn't it? Look at the crappy customers that are there. They don't want to go. Turns out it's the same thing that happened to Carnival Cruise Lines. Okay. So those same people grabbed their $2,500 check and decided to go on a cruise. At the same time, and there was another YouTuber that pointed this out, while they're doing this, California, for instance, made it illegal to evict people. So, responsible people, we do this emotional projection thing where we think, oh, this $2,000 would really help this poor person out. They could do things like buy school supplies, buy food, pay their rent, and that's emotional projection. You're thinking, what would I do if I were in that person's place? That's emotional projection, not empathy, not empathy. The left always wants to act like they're empathetic. No, they emotionally project. They're not empathetic at all. They have very low empathy, actually. I would say if you took a typical leftist and compared it to like a conservative, their empathy is actually a lot lower. That is to say, they understand what other people are feeling less. They're very solipsistic, actually. That is, if you don't know what solipsism is, it's the belief that, the self is the only thing that can be known or understood. So anyway, these various scholars would come to Las Vegas on these cheap fares, and they made it so no one wanted to be there. The good customers, the customers that would come, that would spend money gambling and basically keep it tight, they didn't come back. And they got chased out by this demographic that was ruining everything. So it's the Costco membership. So the Costco, if you don't know what the Costco membership is, maybe you're not from the United States. If you're not from the United States, tell me in the chat. Say, I'm not from the US, right? I'm from Europe and I don't know what Costco is. So we have this chain of wholesale stores here called Costco. To go into the store, you have to have a Costco membership. You have to be a member of Costco to go into the store and buy merchandise. Multiple people have said you could make more sales, you could make more money if you got rid of the membership fee and just let people come in. You would sell way more stuff and just like raise your prices very slightly. And the people who are on Costco know that that's not what they want to do, because their loss prevention is very low. If you know what loss prevention is, that means they don't really have to spend money on security. People don't steal. When they're paying when you pay a membership fee, it keeps the thieves out of your store. So the Costco membership creates a filter that makes it so that only certain people come through that door, and the people that you're allowing to come through that door are not the people who shoplift. They're just a different set of people. They're more responsible. They have to be responsible enough to have a driver's license, to go in, to have $250 on hand to buy a membership for the year or whatever it is now. I think we have an executive membership. And technically, our executive membership is basically free. We actually don't pay for it because we get like cash back. And so it pays for the membership. But anyway, the point is you got to pay an upfront fee to get in there. Only certain people are going to be able to pay that upfront fee. So Vegas adjusted what they were doing to create more barriers for people to come there in order to create a filter. So you got different customers coming into Las Vegas. That was what it was. So when people are like, Las Vegas is dead if you're the kind of person who is not willing to put up a lot of money up front in order to get to Las Vegas. Yeah. So for me, who was a broke 28-year-old or whatever, yeah, Las Vegas is dead. Okay. If I was a wealthier person in my 40s, it's not dead at all. It's just part of the budget. Oh, there's a $50 resort fee. There's a $20 pool fee. Are we even going to go to the pool? Maybe we just don't pay that, right? It becomes it doesn't matter. Like, it just doesn't matter to someone like me if there's a $50 resort fee. You just calculate that into the total of whatever you're doing. So the whole point is to make it expensive enough that the low rent people are not showing up to Vegas anymore. And that actually can lower your costs, even though you're raising rents, so to speak, and you're going to get fewer customers. Those customers cost you less because they're not breaking things. They're not destroying the hotel rooms. They're not having brawls in your lobby. They're not trying to break open the slot machines to get coins out of them or whatever they happen to be doing. They're not trying to steal chips off the table. They're not trying to steal from other people. They're not breaking rules where you have to call security or you have to call police or things like that. So that's a big thing. So in reality, a lot of the penny pinching you see in Vegas, in terms of what the resorts are doing, is to filter certain customers. Now, that's not to say that the $25 waters on the strip are just completely bogus. Somebody's at my door here and my dog is barking. Super annoying when that happens, but whatever. We deal with it. That's a live show. So yeah, that's what it is. It's creating a filter for what kind of customers you want in the Costco. It's the Costco membership thing. Now, Carnival has the same thing. No one wants to go on a Carnival cruise. Why? Because you don't want to get stuck out in the ocean with low rent people, right? Who are going to have a brawl, who are going to fight you over the last shrimp, who are going to get drunk and assault you or try to feel up your wife or something. No one wants to do that. So you make all these decisions predicting, here's some possible bad things that can happen. Do I want to go with that risk? And the answer is no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go on a Carnival cruise line. Me and my wife are not cruise people. Cruises do not appeal to us whatsoever. Being in a tiny little cabin on a floating behemoth, it just doesn't appeal to me at all. I'd rather go somewhere, I could think of cruises that would be fun. And I had friends who worked on cruise ships and stuff, but their horror stories, the staff, that's what really made me not want to go to cruises, knowing people that worked cruise ships. But, yeah, would you want to get stuck on a cruise ship, or would you be willing to, in order for us, it seems like these brawls don't happen on this other cruise line. You're going to go on the other cruise line. Even though it's like 3 times more expensive, you're paying to stay away from certain people. It's the same reason why people will pay they'll get, mom and dad are both working their asses off to have a much more expensive house than what they need. It's because it removes you physically from the people who are going to do you harm. That's why. Okay. All right, let's check out the chat and then we'll go on to the next topic. Okay. More people would have spent their COVID free bucks on PlayStation 5s as Sony had the stock to sell them, but lockdown severely restricted their supply for years. Yep, but here's the thing. Those people still bought PS5s. They bought them from the scalpers. They got their $2,000 free bucks, and they bought a $900, $1,200 PS5. And a bunch of games. So the free bucks people were still buying the PS5s. And they were buying the PS5s. You like my glasses repair? I got some hot glue. I also hot glued my thumbnail because I broke my thumbnail practicing. I cracked it, so I got like a crazy repair going. So yeah. The low rent people, I don't know, but we need a term for them that's not gonna incite. We need a term that's under the radar. You know, I'm gonna call them low rent people. Right? These are the people who they just act. You give them a $2,000 check. They're like, I'm going to Vegas. It's like, well, you could, like, why don't you save that for paying your rent? It's like, I can't get evicted now. I'm just never paying my rent again. And then a year later, it's like, I got evicted. It's like, yes, eventually you get evicted. And it's like, but what do I do now? What happened to my children? You had a year to pay the rent. What do you want? You know? Yeah, doctors and lawyers, urban youths, scholars. They were of the barbarian class, bad casino build. When a crow notices patterns, it's clever, but when I do it, yeah. Yeah, homeless people are bad like that too. Yeah, it's emotional projection. So other people have defined this better than me, but emotional projection is like, what would I do? And like, someone dug up an old J.K. Rowling tweet that was like, if you can't imagine yourself on those boats as a refugee, it's like, you're imagining yourself. That's emotional projection. You have no idea what those refugees are feeling. You don't know what they're feeling. You don't know what the people coming over on the boat are feeling. You don't know what the people coming into England illegally are thinking, right? You're going to have to do a little bit more deep thought to know what they're thinking. And they might be thinking things that you are really not okay with. They're like, well, come here and get some free welfare money and maybe we can bang some blonde chicks, you know? And it's like, how dare you think that they think that? It's like, well, that's what they're doing. So that's probably what they care about, right? So yeah, being able to understand that people think evil thoughts is really important. That's actually empathy. It's like going, oh, I understand what this person wants, and it's disgusting. And if you want to have a charitable empathy, it'd be like, there, but for the grace of God go I, he's a poor sinner. We still can't let him come here. Okay. Top dog law. America's hat. We have Costco too. Yeah, I thought there were some Costco's in Canada, but it's the same idea. It's the same idea. It keeps certain people out of the. And this is a thing. People are like, I see all these immigrants at Costco. I'm like, these are probably the good immigrants. No offense. These are the people who could scrape together $250 to have a Costco membership, and they're not stealing anything from Costco, right? You're, you know what I mean? Your Laotian immigrants are not stealing things from the Costco. And most of your Mexican immigrants aren't either. I don't want to just like single people out. Yeah, that's Welcome to Costco. I love you. Sam's Club. Sam's Club is basically the same thing. Same idea. Walmart owns Sam's Club. I had a job at Walmart once. They called it shrinkage when merchandise went missing. Yes. Theft. We called it loss and loss prevention. They aren't asking other customers for free shit. I mean, you just want to stream on YouTube, but the universe is like, oh, no, you don't. Not in peace, at least. Who knows? There's like we're basically dealing with magic, and like the spell fizzles, and we're like, the spells didn't work. Like, It's basically magic. It's hyper complex technology. I'm using like 2 different sites to stream on 2 different channels. There could be so many hiccups in that setup. I think you need to go purchase a new roof from the guy at your door. It's always roof salesman. And we're trying to work on a thing to like keep all solicitors out of the neighborhood. We can actually post no solicitations at the entrances to the neighborhood, and then you can legally have them arrested for trespassing for trying to solicit. So we're trying to work on that because we have a lot of old people, and like old people get duped. They just are they're from a time when people were more honest, and they just get scammed. Replacement roofs are a big scam around here. A lot of people get their roofs replaced when they don't need to get them replaced. They just get talked into it, and people do a really shitty job sometimes. Next time I get my roof replaced, I'm probably going to put a metal roof on just to get lower insurance, and then to not have to ever replace the roof. I wouldn't risk hot gluing a fingernail. When I was about 13, I accidentally got hot glue on my fingers and ripped the skin off my fingertip off. Where I already hot glued it. It already happened. If you know what you're doing, you could actually put the glue on something else and then spread it onto the nail. And then you won't burn it. But I put it like right on top of the nail, and I was like, that's hot. That thermal glue is pretty hot. And I use an automotive hot glue gun. It's not like some little craft glue gun. It's serious business. But it's fine. And that was on top of paper and super glue. So the whole thing, you probably can't see it, but like the whole thing is really chunky to like provide a lot. I cracked the nail like pretty deep in the quick. It wasn't something I could like easily repair without putting like an acrylic on. And I know acrylics, I should probably just bite the bullet and do acrylic nails, right? I'm really on the nail hardener to try to keep up because I'm playing classical guitar on electric guitars right now. That's like my thing. And I'll do some content with that. You guys have seen a lot of the weird music I do, but like I'm doing stuff that's in a new direction for instrumental solo music, and it'll be interesting. I have a nice little sonata I'm working on for, I could play it on classical guitar. It could actually just be played on classical guitar the way it is right now. But I'm going to try to work it up for electric guitar because I kind of want to ask this question, like, why did we decide that the variant of the Spanish guitar that Hermann Hauser came up with is like the final form? Like, why does it have to be that? You know, we've had all of these technological progressions in guitar playing, all on the electric side, but classical guitar is this one variant of the instrument. And it's not like we have ensembles that use that instrument a lot. It's not like a violin. A violin has been incorporated into an orchestra setting for like almost 500 years at this point. So changing a violin, you know, you can have, I've seen 5-string violins. There's people who are still doing kind of more technological things with violins, but you don't see it as much. But yeah, why do we decide that classical guitar can't use all of these other things? Now, when I was an undergraduate, I did like classical music for electric guitar. There were some composers around who did that, but the classical guitar world was really stuffy and really shouldn't have been so stuffy. They had no right to be stuffy because the classical guitar rep sucks compared to violin or piano. It just is not up to par. It sucks compared to the really the mainline classical instruments. So when you're playing classical guitar, you're like, oh yeah, I'm playing these pieces by these composers that you know, can you play Beethoven? No. Okay. Can you play Bach? Sort of. Bach didn't write anything for guitar, so you're playing a cello transcription, or you're playing a lute transcription that doesn't fit on the guitar, and it doesn't sound as good as it does on the original instrument. So you could kind of play Bach. Yeah, you could play Bach on the guitar. I have. You know, you can't play Brahms. You're playing these. It's cool music. There's a lot of cool music, but it's never as serious as like piano or violin. So I'm like, no. We just need to think more broadly. We need to think like, okay, why can't we have classical music on 8-string guitar? Why can't we approach the instrument as a classical musician rather than it fits in part of this more modern rock ensemble kind of thing. So that's what I'm doing for the next thing. I could probably play like a couple of demo phrases, a couple phrases that I've done so far, let you hear what the material's like. It's pretty interesting. So there'll be 4 movements. I think I have material for 3. The 4th one is kind of, and I could do anything. So I'm actually thinking of, I'm like, if I'm going to do it for electric guitar, I'm going to use some of my ambient style stuff. I'm going to create a movement that is more worked out, because I'm usually just improvising when I do ambient stuff. So this one's going to be using volume pedals and like a high degree of effects to produce like an organ-like piece. And I'm looking forward to that. So I'll work on that as I go. Right now, I just have this routine, and I'll just let you know my routine, even though it doesn't fit with the current theme of the show, but whatever. I'm watching my little kitten playing out there. He's very cute. When I wake up, I get a drink, I sit down, and I practice guitar. And sometimes I put on like a video or like a Scott Adams live stream or something, just something that's like talking, because I'll be doing technical exercises to warm up, bunch of hammer-ons, pull-offs. I've been working on these scale forms, like 3-note per string scale forms, but basically it's an exercise where you play every single mode up and down the neck, and then you can do it with the minor modes. So you would just alter. So if you're playing G major, you would do G major again, but you would add in a D sharp. So you change D to D sharp, and then you do that pattern that way. And so you do it all the way up and down the neck. And that can be boring, right? It can be boring to do this repetition thing. But I was remembering from my days practicing when I was a teenager, how I used to get home after all my shit and like get my guitar out, and I would turn on The Simpsons and I would just practice. Like I would just practice tremolo. They'd have an hour of Simpsons every night, so I'd watch The Simpsons and just practice my tremolo, practice this over and over again, just really slowly till I got it, and do that sort of stuff. Or what's my etude I've been working on? Technical Difficulties by Paul Gilbert, right? Very challenging piece, but it's really good for like getting right hand picking down. Like Paul Gilbert's right hand is phenomenal, and he's able to have full control of getting and crossing strings with it because of the way he picks. So taking that down and getting it really slow and getting out of my kind of jazz picking style that I developed 20 or 30 years ago, and like doing different things, that's been really good too. So anyway, yeah, that's what I've been working on musically. What else here? We're talking about roofs. Yeah. Is ketchup at Whole Foods $12 to keep the pores away? Maybe. I don't know. I haven't been in a Whole Foods in a long time. I wouldn't risk not getting a hot gluing fingernail. I already did that. Low rent people. Yeah. Watch the accent, you're giving it away. I don't know if you've ever seen Caleb Hammer, but if you have, his show has single-handedly shown how financially illiterate most people are, and oh crap, I lost it, and make me understand how screwed we are for national debt. Yeah, most people, like, you have to understand that people, and there's been a lot of study on this, is what makes people sort of stable financially is kind of 3 things. And it was finishing high school, keeping a job for more than 2 years, and staying married. So if they could do those 3 things, then their life outcomes were generally good, regardless of race, regardless of their starting income. If they were doing those 3 things, then their life outcomes were good, meaning like they were able to own a home, they were able to not go to jail, right? They were able to stay married, they were able to provide and eat. They had no struggles, right? They may not have been rich, but they were not anywhere where we consider impoverished. People that didn't do those things were more often stuck in and out of poverty and like weren't able to escape. So you have to think about how people get very upset. I made this thing that was like, poor people are fat, which is objectively true. They're on average the fattest. Like on average, fatness goes way up as you get lower on the income scale. It just does. And to me, I'm like, of course, this goes along with everything that makes them poor, is that they just are not making great decisions in most of the domains of their life. So in making suboptimal decisions with their work, they also make suboptimal decisions with their diet, and they make suboptimal decisions with their relationships. And all of those things keep them poor and make them fat. And the fact is, we do heavily subsidize poverty. We spend a lot of money on many welfare programs besides direct aid, including food stamps, EBT. And the food stamps provide a lot of money for food. It's not like you can only buy rice and beans with the food stamps. You can buy a lot of food for the food stamps. I got real sticker shock the first time I saw a family buying stuff with food stamps, because they were spending quadruple my family's monthly budget in one trip to the store for way more food. And I was like, how are you guys buying all this food for like 3 kids? And it's like, they just paid for it with food stamps. And it was things that I would never buy because they're too expensive. They bought nothing but like, and they weren't, I'm not trying to be judgmental about what they were buying, but they weren't struggling to buy things like frozen chicken nuggets or frozen pizzas or Gatorade or things like that. They bought big bags of chips. They bought all the snack food that you could want. So it wasn't like they were buying, we can only afford to buy. How much is a 50-pound bag of rice at Costco? It's like $20. Good luck eating 50 pounds of rice. That's a lot. Okay. So rice and beans are freaking cheap. Like, your staple foods are really cheap. Sorry, I sneezed earlier. Now, anyway. Roma people think that they're allowed to steal because they stole the nails used on Christ's cross. I've heard this before. This is a cultural thing. The fact is that they don't consider people that are non-Roma to be people. Like, Roma are the people, and everybody else is just goyim, right? They're just other people. Not that the Roma are Jews, but that's like, they're not us. Therefore, they're not really afforded any dignity. Like, no dignity exists for people that aren't us. Whereas it's really the West that's like, all people have dignity. All human beings have a minimum amount of dignity. I shouldn't steal from anyone. I shouldn't, I shouldn't violate the rights of anyone. Most people don't think that way outside of the West. They think there's us and there's them. And there's things that you do for us, and you don't need to do those things for them. You can steal from them. You can't steal from us. So you don't steal from fellow gypsies. You steal from the white tourists. I always like the generic term Democrats. Lots of Democrats on that cruise ship. Yeah. Shrinkage of flex. I think it's flex. I used to know someone who managed a grocery store, and I think he called it that. Yeah, shrinkage or flex, when like your merchandise disappears because somebody needed it more than you did, right? When I was a very small child, I went to a friend's house, and before knocking on the door, I saw no solicitor sign. I didn't know what that meant, and I was terrified to knock. Yeah, it means you can't knock on it and try to sell them stuff. There's an amazing musician, Bobby Kahn. His wife plays violin on all his albums, glam rock style, indie rock. Cool. Yeah. What do you think of how people like Andre Rieu tend to be looked down upon by classical music scene? I don't know who that is. I'm sorry. Scott Adams says we're in the golden age. We are in a lot of ways. Like, we're talking using magic. That's pretty awesome. I saw an interesting video recently that made the case that the difference between fats that add to obesity and the ones that don't has to do with the balance of amino acids in different fats and oils. That's an interesting thing. That might be an interesting pipeline to go down. However, I have seen lots of research. By that, I mean, I've seen lots of abstracts and people talking about the research. I don't read the papers a lot, right? Only unless I'm like, that doesn't seem like it's very right. I want to look a little deeper. When they've gone and they've looked at people who are obese, universally, they're just eating more. They're just eating more food. And in a lot of cases, they don't know how much they're eating because of like what we're talking about. If you are on a budget, your calories are a budget, right? I think about how much food I'm eating all the time. And if I wasn't, I'd be 300 pounds right now. And I know because I was really fat at one point. And I was really fat because I didn't think about how much food I was eating. I just drank as much beer as I wanted, really bad for you. And I just ate when I was hungry. When I was hungry, I ate. And I didn't think about the calories. And when I was young, it didn't matter. I could eat endless food and never get fat when I was 20, or like barely put on any weight. But it adds up over time. You know, it takes a long time for the weight to come on. It takes a long time for it to go off. So the main thing I've seen is that pretty much universally, regardless of other things about their diet, they're just eating more calories. So getting them on a diet, maybe that's better kinds of fats. That might be part of it. I'm not going to say it's not part of it, but it's also just the amount they're eating. Maybe the bad fats make them hungrier. That's possible, right? Like maybe eating the bad kind of fat would make you want to eat more food in general. There's a possible linkage there. But one thing I do know is that you're not breaking the laws of thermodynamics. Calories in, calories out. That's like an iron law. And any diet that proposes that you're going to break the laws of thermodynamics, you shouldn't pay attention to that. That is a fad diet, and it's probably not going to work. There's lots of approaches to reducing your calorie intake, and many of them are effective, and many of them could be effective for you and less effective for someone else. And it's okay to experiment and find one that's effective for you. For some people, that's a ketogenic diet. I think ketogenic diets, obviously they work for a lot of people. They don't work well for me. I don't like being on a ketogenic diet. And I've done it. I've done carb cycling. I've done lots of different like approaches to dieting. But for me, I need to have some amount of carbohydrates. I don't have a super carb heavy. It's not like I'm eating, like I ate waffles today. I ate a shortcake before this. There's plenty of carbs in that. I wanted a little bit of sugar before. I didn't want my blood sugar to be like 0. But I'm also thinking about my blood sugar, even though I don't like sit around and test it. And I'm not diabetic, not even remotely. But I think about sugar. I think about what I'm eating, you know. So there's a lot of people that could do it. You know, it's like, I did carnivore. I'm like, great. If that works for you, go for it, you know. I don't think I could really afford carnivore, and it sounds like a really miserable experience. And if it's a miserable diet, then I won't stick to it, you know. If you never get to eat things you like, you're probably not going to stick to the diet. That's the other thing too. So that's why I was really into like, and I have some videos on the channel of like kind of healthier cookies. You know, here's my protein cookies that are 150 calories and have like 15 grams of protein. Why would I make that? Well, the answer is because I want cookies. And if I have something that's good enough, that's like close enough to a cookie, then I'll be okay with that cookie. And I won't be like, I need to get a cookie. I need to get myself a donut. You know, I won't break down and eat a box of cereal or something later, you know? I found that playing modern classical pieces helped me improve my technique greatly when I was learning grade 5 pieces in college. I don't even know the grades anymore. I never paid attention. I just played music that I thought was good. You know, I remember I played some piece that people were like, this is like the hardest piece in the repertoire. I'm like, oh, okay. I just thought it sounded cool, so I learned it. And here I am, you know. I used to accidentally go to Walmart, and on the day the checks came in, oh yes, and it was shopping carts full of Diet Pepsi and chips to the back of the store. At least they're getting Diet Pepsi. At least they're getting the Diet Pepsi. David just visited the village of Brie. He won't be seen there for 6 months once he leaves, though. Yes. Nobody reads the papers. We go through them, read the abstract, and scrutinize the figures. Yeah. To actually read the paper, I mean, I was in academia. I know how to read research papers, but you know, no one has time for that. I mean, some people do, but it's like, generally I have like a preconceived idea of how things work. And if something is in rebellion against that, I might take a closer look. And if something is just agreeing with what I already knew, then I don't look at it. You know, maybe that's a bad way to do it. I don't know, but I have to make selections about what I actually investigate, you know. Corpulent people. The video made the case that fats need to have a certain balance. Oh, I've heard this. A balance of omega-3 and omega-6 to provide a healthy insulin response. Yes, I've heard this too. There's too much omega-6 and not enough omega-3 leads to obesity. So I've heard that I haven't heard this about insulin because fats shouldn't affect insulin. That should be sugars. But maybe they do. I don't know. Maybe it turns out there's some like downstream effect. But I've heard this with inflammation. Omega-6s, if you're high on omega-6, then it can cause more arterial inflammation or something like that. But yeah, omega-3s, you can always get. I have a lot of flax. I use flaxseed and stuff because I don't like to eat a lot of fish. And Yeah, I'm not super big into fish. Just not. I will eat fish, but really I should be like eating it all the time. And I just don't like to eat fish that much. All right. Yes. Next subject. All right. Las Vegas is dead. I'm going to do like a video on that. Okay. Mormons are not Christians. So this was a thing. Okay. We had a really bad thing happen. Somebody attacked a Mormon church in Michigan, I believe, and burned it down. So given the climate of what we've been experiencing, everybody's first thought was this was a politically motivated attack, and it was an attack on Christians. And so the first thing that happens is a bunch of people are like, well, Mormons aren't Christians. And I would have been upset if this happened at a mosque or a synagogue, right? To attack somebody's house of worship, I think, is pretty vile. I think that's a pretty vile and disgusting thing to do, because that is like a proxy attack on God. And I believe that this attack kind of was that, but it turns out this was a guy who was very disgruntled about, I think, church leadership taking his ex-wife's side in a divorce. So he was getting divorced, and either he was a Mormon or his wife was Mormon, or they were both Mormon, and the church was taking his side. I don't know all the details, but he got really upset about this and decided to attack this church over this. So it actually wasn't what we would think of as a politically motivated attack, not like the trans shooters at the schools and at the Catholic Church, right? So it wasn't like that. But it sparked this big debate, which is like, are Mormons Christian? Now, I'll just give you my 2 cents on this. I know I have Mormons that watch me. I love them. I've never had a bad experience with my Mormon friends. I have really nothing bad to say about Mormons. People have asked me on the stream, what do you think of Mormons? I'm like, I have nothing bad to say about them. I don't believe the things that they believe. But they've always been good to me, and I've never had bad business relations with them. They've always been honest with me. They've been fine friends. I've worked with them professionally. I've worked with them as a musician. I've never performed like in an LDS function or anything, but I've performed with LDS people in religious functions, like, I don't know, general, Christmas music and stuff like that. And they've always been fine. I've never had an issue with them. But there was this big debate, are Mormons Christian? And this is a really interesting thing to think about, because where we draw our lines with our self and other, or like us and them, it's very interesting. I was raised as an evangelical. So I'll give you a little bit of my history. I was raised as an evangelical. As an evangelical, we were taught that Mormons are not Christians and that the Mormon church is a cult. Now, cult is this like, it's this little attack word. And we were never asked to think about what a cult was, or whether we were in a cult. Fact is, we were in a cult just as much as Mormons were. And if the Mormon church was a cult, our church was a cult. We had very much similar things in terms of what you do with people that leave the cult, right? And Mormons generally are not bad with people who are lapsed Mormons, right? This belief that you're going to ostracize people when they leave the cult. They can't leave the cult because they're leaving all their friends and family behind. That was true of where I was too, right? It's like, for me to reject that form of Christianity would be to lose possibly my family, right? And it's been a conflict in my life, my whole life, really. Okay. But anyway, they called it a cult, and they said it's not Christian. And then they went in to look at all these beliefs that were different from what we believed. Some of them that we might consider wacky or whatever. But the fact is, the line theologically is whether you're Trinitarian or not. All right, there's these different lines that we draw as far as communion goes with churches. And if you were to go back in time 200 years, you never have the discussion of who's a Christian and who's not a Christian. Everyone was some form of Christian, so that wasn't the question, right? There was the true church, or, people were this person's a Shaker and this person's a Methodist and this person's Catholic. And they just kind of viewed them all as different religions. For political purposes, we've created a coalition of Christians. of Christianity. We have this big tent of Christianity. We don't all get along in that tent. But there's mainline Protestants, like Methodists and Anglicans and Lutherans, right? And then there's the Catholics, and there's the Orthodox, and there's the Evangelicals, which are going to be Baptists and Mennonite Brethren. And then there's the weirder people like the Mennonites and the Amish that are technically part of the tent. But we would consider the Amish more cult-like for sure, and Mennonites to be a lot more cult-like, or German Anabaptists, right? These people that live on their own and dress weird, right? Tend to think of them as like they're pretty much on the edge, even though if you were to examine their theological beliefs, a Baptist and a Mennonite have very few theological differences between them. But how they try to express that in the world ends up being a different thing. So we create this big tent, and then we put certain groups outside of the tent that all the little versions of Protestantism could kind of agree that we don't like. And so one of them was Mormons. Like, Mormons are not Christians. They're non-Trinitarian. But the Mormons were outside that little tent, and so were Jehovah's Witnesses. They were outside the tent. Let me think if there's any others. Seventh-day Adventists were, again, a marginal one, but they were usually in the tent, even though they believed their theology was way different, and they actually had a prophet. So somebody said in chat, new prophet, new religion. You have a prophet. I'm trying to remember her name from the Adventist movements. The Seventh-day Adventist, that is. Her name escapes me right now. It's weird because I've written essays about it, but because I'm not Seventh-day Adventist and I did the research for the essay and I was looking at larger trends, I tend to forget names. I'm not the best. It's like I'm super into Roman history, and it's like, but I don't remember the name of every consul, and I can't. Like that, right? So yeah, I was Mennonite Brethren, which are kind of similar. So, but we were Mennonite Brethren, started as Mennonites, and we just it regressed into the mean of mainstream evangelicalism. We had, by the time I was in high school, we had the 7-Eleven worship music crap every week. All the stuff that made Mennonites had disappeared from the church by that point. And so it's just another evangelical church. Evangelical churches tend to define themselves based on how they operate, and a lot of things with aesthetics. And they tend to just not emphasize the hard edges of their theology very much. Like, technically, Mennonites are pacifists. They believe it is sinful to join the military, but nobody ever talked about that or took it seriously. And in fact, they would bring kids up who were joining the army and like have a celebration for them. Like, very weird for church to me. And I took a lot of exception to it when I was young. I'm like, why are they? This is a weird thing to celebrate when their like statement of morals or whatever includes pacifism, but no one read that and no one cared. They were there for the music and to hang out with other people. That's why they were there. They really didn't care about, Menno Simon or anything he had to say back when. They didn't give a shit about that stuff. Anyway, they put outside the tent those weirdos, those Jehovah's Witnesses and those Mormons. And for the political purposes, there's this question of whether Mormons are Christians or not. And for political purposes, they are. And they are because they are followers of Christ on some level, right? They have a different view of who Christ was, profoundly different. But the main thing is that they believe in God. And because they believe in a God, they get politically put under the Christian tent. That's kind of where they are. It's kind of where we need to view them politically, is like they're an ally, they're a political ally, similar morals, similar desires for how society needs to be, about our freedoms, about our mutual beliefs. Most of our mutual beliefs are in common at this point. If we were to take a snapshot of like late 19th century Mormonism, that might be very different, but we're talking about Mormonism in 2025, or the LDS Church in 2025, and it's more, in terms of its moral stances, it's much more like mainline Protestantism than it is some kind of wacky, weird outside religion like Shakers, and things like that. So It's an interesting question, though. We've drawn these lines in Christianity over many years, and created the idea of orthodoxy. And I say created, I'd say the idea it's developed through various kinds of councils. What is orthodoxy? It's the straight way. It's the correct way. And so every so often a heresy comes up, it has to be addressed. And it's not that the people often get these things backwards. They're like, the council did not decide that there was a Trinity, right? Like the Council of Nicaea did not decide there was a Trinity. The Trinity was already the established doctrine of the church, but you had to kind of state it in concrete terms to identify and be opposed to the Arian controversy, the Arian heresy, which had penetrated the church at that point. So it's really a response to heresy. The Trinity existed before that as a concept, but it had to be made official because there were people trying to give other teachings, specifically Arianism, that Christ was like on the creature level. Christ was a creation and not part of a fully divine Trinity of three persons in one, undivided. Then you have like the Chalcedonian division. This is the division between Orthodoxy and Catholicism as we know them today, and the other churches of the East, the other Orthodox churches, which are going to be churches that use Nestorianism or some other concept of who Christ was, rather than viewing Christ as a fully divine, fully human nature in what's called hypostasis. They viewed them as one unique nature, neither human nor divine, but new nature in some cases, or things like that. So you have the Assyrian Church of the East, you have the Coptic Church, the Ethiopian Church. Those are all non-Chalcedonian churches. And so that's the other division. Are those people not Christian? Well, we probably put them in the Christian camp. They really operate like Christians. And so when we're thinking about these discussions, they're not new, they're old, right? We've had these discussions a lot. When the Lutherans rebelled, do they count as Christians? We had to have those questions too. And now we've kind of, for political reasons, we've settled into this big tent of things, and Mormons probably should be part of that because we have all these things in common, right? I consider it a different faith. It has a different cosmology. It has many different concepts from any other form of Christianity, or what we call like traditional Christianity. But, if somebody is going to be on a rampage against the religious right, if they're going to be on a rampage against Christ, then the Mormon Church is part of that. They identify their enemies. I think a lot of people were expecting this attack on the church to be political, and so it's like, hey, they're identifying the Church of Latter-day Saints as part of the enemy group, and so we should be aware of that. It's like, I would be upset if they did this to a synagogue or a mosque too. That's also not okay. That's really bad. But it wasn't politically motivated. It was a guy who was upset about his divorce and snapped. Anyway. The theology is wild and closer to paganism than any Christian denomination, IMO. I agree, but I wouldn't call it close to paganism. Paganism, so I don't want to go on a rant on paganism, but here we go. It's like paganism, there's no such thing as paganism. Paganism is a religious area, not a religion. It's in fact many cults and many religions coexisting with each other, interacting with each other. That's what paganism was. And if we're thinking of classical European paganism in the Roman Empire, or maybe Scandinavian religion, Scandinavian paganism shares a lot of these things in common. So you have many gods. It's not just many gods. It's that many religions, many cults, many different rites for different gods. You don't have that in the LDS Church. They have a very interesting cosmology. It's not really pagan to me, though. It doesn't really resemble Roman paganism to me really at all. But the main takeaway with paganism is like everybody might have had their own household gods, and you read this in the Bible. They're household gods they carried with them, right? Like what do you mean you might have a Jupiter in your house, and that Jupiter might be, you might think of it as a different Jupiter from the one at the temple, and you do special rites for your Jupiter, and like You might have a household god that's just for your family. It's like just your family's god. And you just do rites for you have your own secret religion and your own cult that's just your family. That stuff was around with paganism. You had weird cults, and those cults were located in a city and dedicated to one area. And all of them kind of meshed together. And we think of it as one religion because the Romans had a state policy of syncretism, where they would go and they'd be like, oh, I see you're worshiping Tyr over here in Gaul. Well, Tyr, he's very similar to Jupiter. So we'll call this Jupiter Tyr, and we'll just say it's another version of Jupiter. We worship the same god. We have a lot in common. We'll make sure we continue to do your rites for Tyr so that your version of Jupiter is on the same side as our version of Jupiter, and everybody's happy. We're going to honor all the gods. We're going to honor every god we can to make sure we're on everybody's good side. When I look at the cosmology of Mormonism, I really don't see anything like that. But, other than you could become a god. But if you're going to go deep into Christian theology, you'll find that that's not too far outside. That's far less outside than what you think, especially if you're a Protestant and this stuff isn't discussed. Theosis, you can look into theosis. It's more discussed in Eastern Orthodoxy than it is in Catholicism, which has the beatific vision as a way of gaining full contact with God and also regaining the likeness to God. But regaining the likeness of God means regaining not just the moral likeness, but like you become like God. I think it was, oh my gosh, who said it? That we might become gods. Oh my gosh. Super important saint from Constantinople. Who am I thinking of, guys? It'll come to me in a minute. Yeah. I used to live in a Mennonite community in the late 1990s. They were still very strictly followers of Menno Simon's teachings. Ours wasn't. It had just become fully worldly. Yeah. So there you go. You had some old people that would still try to, but they just kind of left and went to other communities by the 90s. Protestantism has troon priests now, so that's not saying much. The thing is, that's the other thing. There's no such thing as Protestantism. Protestantism is an area of many different religious denominations that are in the Christian area. So you have, and they're all operationally different. So yes, there's maybe Lutheran churches that have gay atheist priests somehow, but those beliefs don't carry over into another denomination. So the thing about Protestantism, if you're not a Protestant, anytime there's a disagreement, you have another schism. You have like a little schism, like, oh, there's a problem in this church. This person's preaching something we don't like. Rather than, there's no authority to go to say like, you're preaching the wrong thing, because the authority is just in the individual interpreting the Bible. You just schism and have a new one. So you'll find that all these denominations are just schisming all the time, anytime there's a moral conflict. And you'll find that the ones that are like, doing the gay priests, the majority of the churches might leave and they make it their own new denomination. And you're like, well, what are denominations? It turns out they're like loan organizations when you get down to it. That's going to make people uncomfortable. Look into it, right? Like what does this denomination do? Well, they give loans to like franchise churches. That's the way a lot of them operate. It's not because if you're Catholic, you're like, there's just the Catholic Church. You just see the Catholic Church. It's all one thing. It's all operated as one big ass thing. But when you are going to the Protestant side, it's a bunch of little churches, little organized. They're all separate from each other. They don't believe the same things. They may hate each other. And if they don't like each other, they'll just make a new church, or everybody will leave that church and go to a different one. There's no like oneness in the Protestant church. So there's no Protestantism. It's just, there's many denominations with many different beliefs. And so to say like some of those denominations have troon priests, yes, some of them have trans priests, but many others are completely opposed to that. And so putting them in the same basket as if it's all the same thing is just not really fair. It's not really charitable. A lot of ancient heresies still floating around in the year 2000. Oh yeah. Pre-existing human souls, that seems pretty pagan to me. I'm not aware of that being pagan at all. that there's a bunch of human souls waiting to be embodied. That's a Gnostic thing. That's not pagan. But it is floating around. And I've said before, the trans ideology is a Gnostic religious belief set. You have to believe that somehow your body can be wrong, but your soul is somehow immutable and unchangeable and is. It simply is, and you know it directly through gnosis. You just like know it without an empirical external reality. It's just like, I just know that I'm a woman inside, and that's how it is. Okay, you just know it. That's Gnosticism, and the idea of like a human soul. And now, I had some Mormons that got pretty upset when I was like, because Mormons believe in a pre-existence of a soul, that is more compatible with. There's more ground over there with trans ideology, because we had this trans shooter that used to be a Mormon. So if he already believes in a pre-existence of souls, but he abandons most of the beliefs of the church, it's not that hard for him to just kind of slide over into this ancient heresy and start to believe that like you can just be in the wrong body. The Ebionites, one of the first two Christian sects along with the Nazarenes, taught that Christ was biologically Joseph's son and became the Son of God when the Holy Spirit descended on him at baptism. The Nazarenes, on the other hand, believed in the virgin birth. So, yeah, this stuff's it's very old. You can find lots of this stuff when you look into it. In Mormonism, all souls are eternal and souls are also material. Yes. And the other thing is, the other Mormon belief is like you wouldn't be in the wrong body because your body would be a perfect vessel for your soul. I think there's some issues with that that someone's probably hashed out in the church because of like the fall of man. You know, we have this belief of why are people born with, you know, broken brains and stuff like that. And, you know, the traditional belief is the influence of sin. It's not just that Adam fell, the world fell with Adam. And so we're subject to disease, hardship, deformity, all these sorts of things. But that doesn't mean the body's not you. It doesn't mean you aren't your body. You are your body. I mean, this is so easy to verify. It's like, what are you? You're obviously your body. You know, it's pretty self-evident that you are your body, because we can't verify too much beyond the body. We can verify that you have a mind because your body acts. You have a soul that animates the body. So that's also, you know, we can observe that. But we can't see that there's some indelible quality to the soul that only you can know. How does another person verify that? Well, because I told you. Well, that's not evidence. That's not me verifying it. It's like, I saw Bigfoot. Oh, well, let's go film him and verify it. I just verified it to you now. I told you I saw him. No, we have to do something a little more objective. That's outside of ourselves, right? That's part of an object. Yeah, theosis. We're made in the image and likeness, but we lost the likeness. Not Athanasius. Athanasius was earlier, and he was also Egyptian, wasn't he? Wasn't he Coptic? I could be wrong. I could be completely misremembering. Anyway. The term Elohim, which wasn't a term for God, but could also apply to other divine beings, such as archangels. Heresy bros. Mormonism doesn't require that the universe was even created by a transcendent God. The universe might just exist. Yeah. Like I said, their cosmology is very different. And like, I don't believe it, so I don't really need to dig into it or try to attack it. You know, I don't believe it. I call paganism and Gnosticism the same thing. Yeah. I don't view them as same, but pagan, like the word, this funny word, paganus, which means like hillbilly or like country person, I guess, because while the cities became Christianized, the people out in the sticks, they still did their weird rituals. Like, oh, they're leaving bread out for the god of the grove, and they're making sacred sheep and releasing them into the forest for the gods in the forest. Those silly pagans. You know, they're still doing their little pagan rituals. So paganism kind of held on in the sticks, where like people in the cities became very Christianized in the Roman Empire. It's kind of interesting how that worked. Same thing with heathen. Heathen means like, I'm trying to remember what heathen means. It means like of the grasses or something. It means like a person kind of outside the city is a heathen. So yeah, but Gnosticism, those were actual like cults that were probably different. I mean, I'm thinking of them as different from like standard, but there's no such thing as paganism. It's like a bunch of cults. So Gnosticism, maybe that could be part of paganism if you're being really general. If you're using like the biggest, most robust version of paganism, which just means all the religions that aren't Christian, then yeah, totally. Gnosticism can easily fit in that. It's in one cult of many cults. Same thing if you look at like Manichaeism. Is Manichaeism paganism? I wouldn't call it such. It's too systematized. It's more systematized kind of religious thought. And even though we are not Manichaeists anymore, who was a Manichaeist? There was a saint that was a Manichaeist. Who am I thinking of? That'll come to me in a minute. St. Augustine of Hippo. He was a Manichaeist. So he believed in Manichaeism, and then he converted. So, but people would follow different religions. I wouldn't call Manichaeism pagan. You know. I just saw Bigfoot, so I know it's true. Joseph Smith is a prophet because he had to write himself back into the Bible. This is an actual argument. Well, I mean, if you either believe, so this is one of those things, like you either believe that he was a prophet and this is true, or you don't. And since I don't believe it, I don't really have to worry about the stuff that follows from that. And if you do believe it, then that's when you're pretty much going to believe the stuff that follows from that, right? I read a Star Wars story that showed Chewbacca become the Sasquatch of the Pacific Northwest. City rural divide goes back a long way, yeah. Where does the paranormal and Christianity meet? Well, what does paranormal mean to you? Christianity is paranormal, right? I mean, I wouldn't call it paranormal. It's supernatural. There's a lot of supernatural belief in Christianity. We believe in miracles, lots of things like that. Belief in relics, a lot of supernatural beliefs. I think if you're looking at Christianity as some sort of philosophical project, I think you're missing a big part of it. There's people who are like, I'm philosophical Christian, but I don't believe in miracles. I'm like, okay. So like, you're really a practical atheist, but like you like the moral framework of Christianity, which I guess it's a perspective, right? Yeah. A Mormon, though we prefer the proper name of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, as the term Mormon just distances us from Christ. I got back from my 2-year proselytizing mission 4 months ago. There you go. So, yeah, I understand that. There's another thing, too, is that there's other Mormon churches besides the big one, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, because there were some schisms in the early church there as well. So the big one that everybody knows is the LDS Church, and then there's some smaller ones that never went on the Exodus. They never went to Utah. I don't remember all the details. You probably know them better than me. Anyway, the philosophy and the ritual are both rewarding avenues of study. It can be. All right. Let's see here. People can't tell shitty from good. Let me see if I can find this. I had a friend that shared this. It's like you have the guy from ZZ Top playing guitar in the corner and no one gives a shit. They don't recognize him. They don't care about what he's playing. It's Billy Gibbons. And he's just like out shredding and no one gives a shit. They don't care about Billy Gibbons playing guitar on the corner. They don't care. I saw another one years ago, Joshua Bell, who I've seen in concert. Very fine classical violinist. He's in the subway playing some Paganini, right? Super difficult music. Really well. No one cares. No one cares. They are unable to recognize what they're hearing. They just didn't care. No one even threw like one person, like one or two people recognize like, whoa, this guy's really good. Maybe I should give him $1, right? But yeah, Billy Gibbons is out playing. No one recognizes it. This has always been a problem, and I've talked about it in several videos. Like has music gotten worse? Is like music has always been bad, and most people are really bad judges of what's good and bad anyway. So they're unable to make good judgments about what high quality music is going to be. And the Billy Gibbons thing is just another example, right? Outside of the context of I'm going to a concert and they're up on the stage and they have a name called ZZ Top that I know is an important band. Like outside of that context, should you care about Billy Gibbons playing? And it turns out if you take him out of that context, nobody knows or cares about who he is. The qualities of what he's playing with, 60 years of experience or whatever on his instrument don't matter. They don't matter because a lot of our experience of art is contextual, but also people just can't judge that stuff, right? They tend to judge quality within the social matrix and not outside of it. So you can't really trust people to like good shit. I saw a best-selling book that was like, I don't remember what it was called. It was called like, it was about some girl sucking off minotaurs. Like Minotaur glory hole, daily milking of my Minotaur lover. And that's what it was. It was a whole book of sucking Minotaur dick. And like, it's a bestseller. And I was like, how is this a bestseller? I'm like, people are retarded. People are fucking stupid. That's what it is. And the sooner you accept that reality, the more you can just kind of settle into take that black pill, swallow it. People are stupid. They have terrible taste. They can't recognize greatness. They, in fact, interpret greatness through a social matrix of people who are better and smarter than them, telling them what is great and what ought to be liked. That's important. And maybe I'll circle back around to that. But people are stupid. So just accept that. Why is your good book not being read? Because people are stupid. The quality of your book is not going to penetrate the fog of shittiness and make people read it. I've learned this firsthand. Here's a great book. You should read it. King Leper, out now on Amazon. I'm going to link it down below. Read this book. It's a great book. You should read the whole series. I put a lot of effort into making this a great book for you guys, okay? 2 people have reviewed it. So in terms of its popularity, it's low. Now, it had a successful Kickstarter. 75 of you got a signed, personalized copy, which I was so happy to deliver to people, and I hope that that was a special product for people. But it's not really selling on Amazon because nothing sells on Amazon. The tragedy of the commons has killed Amazon. So yes, AI slop with music, same idea. We're just going to circle right back around to that, is that when someone says, oh, AI music or AI books or AI blah is great because people like it. Yeah, they also like the Minotaur dick sucking book. That's not an argument. Saying people like it doesn't mean anything. They like what we tell them to like. I'm going to go with Steve Jobs on this one. Oh, what does the customer want? The customer wants what I fucking tell them to want. I'll bring it more sweetly, is that people like the things that they are convinced to like before they even experience them. That a lot of what we consider quality is filtered through our social matrix. So if we want good books to be popular, BookTube, we need to get those people laid so that they're not reading the Morning Glory Minotaur Milk Farm, Semen Farm thing or whatever the hell they're reading. And they are sexually satisfied so they can go read real books. So that's number one, is these millennial women, we gotta figure out how to get them laid so that they are a little bit less obsessed with gross shit. And then we need to have real book reviewers back in the world to start making taste again. I don't know. That's probably against everything that I've been saying so far, but I have lived the indie book lifestyle for these 10 long years. I have learned the ins and outs of this shitty industry, so you don't have to. And the fact is that it's all about casting that spell to get people to like things, to get people to think things are important. So seeing lots of reviews lets people know other people like this. Therefore, I should like it too. If you see it's a bestseller, other people like this. Therefore, I should like this too. If a great reviewer says you should read this, another person likes this, I should like this too. I tried to be this person for like metal music. I was reviewing metal albums every week. Now, the views were in the toilet for those. People don't care about heavy metal reviews, but I'm like, I want to talk about good music. YouTube is like, don't you dare talk about good music. I'm punishing you. I'm going to take away 90% of your traffic tomorrow because you talked about good music. You put out a good review of something you like. Bad dog. No views for you. The robot punished me severely for talking about things that I liked, especially metal music that I liked. But I want to be able to make that taste for people. Like, hey, you should listen to this. The other thing is, like, we're going to need publishers to come back. We're going to need publishers in a big way because the fact is that Amazon is a toilet. It's a toilet of garbage, and you don't want to put your face, you don't want to be swimming through that toilet to try to find a good book. Go to Barnes & Noble, and there'll be books. Talk to the people there about what books to buy. This is the way that, unfortunately, it's going to have to happen. And I think Barnes & Noble's made a comeback by doing that. It's like, well, the service we need to provide is the filter. We need to filter the books. Select the books that are there, have a lot of books, have people that work there that are really into books. They can recommend books, and people come in and like, I'm like this, well, then you might like that. So it's like we have to rehumanize this process because the AI has nuked the fiction market from orbit. If you are in the indie fiction market, you have to be thinking outside of Amazon now. Amazon will not sell your book for you. You have to find another way to get the attention of people that might want to read it, whether that's like on a serial fiction website, or that's going with the trad publisher, or it's running promotions with a smaller publisher. I really don't want to open up a publishing house. This is another thing. I don't want to open up a publishing house. I know how to do it. I can have a publishing house. I can be a publisher. I don't want to do it because I want to write books. I want someone else to be that publisher. But the fact is, we need publishers. Maybe I have to start a publishing company so that we can have one. That publishes good books. You know what I'm saying? Anyway. If a music channel uploads hours of new content every day, it's AI generated. 100%. 100%. Unless it's me. So let me link my music thing. I could upload hours of music every day and it won't be AI generated. How do I do it? Well, I'm really good. Oh wait, no, that's not it. Well, I'll link the Bandcamp too. Here's your Bandcamp. Okay. Okay, here's the Zool channel. It's all live. It's me playing live, guys. Subscribe. Listen to some of that live music. I have new live music coming down the pipeline any day here at some point. I'll do more of the improv stuff too. I can do that whenever I want. To be fair, I doubt that the audience for that Minotaur book is nearly as big as, for instance, the audience for Stephen King or John Grisham books. Yeah, but, 50 Shades of Grey sold really well, and it probably outsold Stephen King the year that it came out. While Stephen King is a consistent seller year over year, and John Grisham is a consistent seller year over year, do they have, sometimes you get these top books like, Morning Glory, 50 Shades of Grey, that just like blow things up for a year, and then that's what it is. Have you heard of the AI-generated actress Tilly Norwood? Oh, I heard this, yes. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Her creator says several agents have approached him about deals to put her in movies. Then he wants her to be the next Scarlett Johansson. It won't happen because our ability to make AI movies is just not there. And it probably won't be there for a while. I've seen some impressive clips, impressive scenes, but they're always like short things, like 2 minutes, we don't really, and from what I'm hearing is like, we don't really have the technology to turn that into a 2-hour movie. Now, but I said the more things change, the more they change, the more they stay the same. They wanted to do this with a model that they used for Final Fantasy, The Spirits Within. Yes, they named her, this character and this model, they named her, they had this idea that they were going to use her in all of these movies. God, what was the name of it? It was very photorealistic for the time. Anyway, you can just look her up. But yeah, so there was like a Maxim magazine that had like a Maxim like photo shoot of this computer generated woman from Final Fantasy Spirits Within. Here it is. So yeah, let me I'll show this to you real quick. There you go. Okay, so yeah, so like they were like, we're going to put her in more movies. We're going to have this character, this person. We're going to make her a computer generated actress, and we're going to put her in all these movies. So she even had like this little Maxim photo thing, because they would get like, Anna Kournikova or someone to do like a swimsuit shoot for Maxim magazine. So they were going to do this, like, when did this come out? 2000? Yeah. 99, 2000? When did it come out? 2001. Yeah. So we're talking, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Did that happen back then? No, I don't think it's going to happen now. Personally. You're competing with women's porn. We can probably say porn in the chat, can't we? I don't know. I miss when books used to be good. They're still good. They're still good. You can't find them. There's amazing books. I wrote them. I wrote the books for you to read, but you can't find the good books. The good books are hidden. They are buried underneath the Morning Glory, Super Milk, Minotaur, Wang Farm, 3. They're just buried. You're not going to find them. Or it's like a billion pages of AI fantasy slop, and you're like, this is just endless AI fantasy harem books. Where's like the good shit? The good shit's at Barnes & Noble, even if it's bad. Like, I made this point, like a Joe Abercrombie book. I'm not really into Joe Abercrombie, but if you gave me Joe Abercrombie versus a random best-selling indie sci-fi or indie fantasy book, I would just pick the Joe Abercrombie book. I'm not a big fan of Joe Abercrombie, but I still feel like I would have a better chance of having a higher quality product from that traditional publisher than just a random best-selling indie book. Because even though we have all the freedom to write what we want and publish it and find the readers, it became a race to the bottom really fast. So the entire indie space is built around the sloppiest slop. Like, what is the most targeted garbage, repetitive garbage that we can do? And of course, the next step would be to just have AI write it. And when you talk to most indie publishers or most indie authors, what they're really excited about with AI writing is that they don't have to write books. They don't like writing books. They don't like creating cool things. They want to they want to be thought of as an author, and they want to make money. And so AI is like, I could get this computer to write this book, and I don't ever have to figure out how to be cool or original. And I could just plug in my marketing keywords and it'll write me a cool book, and I'll just publish it under a pen name and I'll make money. And it's like, I don't think you will, actually, because there's so many people doing it. Your book's not going to get found. It's just in the noise. It won't ever get read, which is okay because you didn't read it and you didn't write it. So you didn't write it. No one needs to read it. You're not communicating anything. So it'll just go into the digital noise pile and be gone forever. And that's fine. It should be, as soon as you start having AI write your books, you're no longer a writer. Right, we can agree on that, right? You're not a writer at that point. You're a prompter. And the prompters get super butthurt when you point this out. It's like, you're not writing a book. I'm just as much of a writer as you. No, you're not. I'm actually thinking of the words and putting them on a page. I'm thinking of words and I'm writing them down and I'm making them exist. I'm not asking a computer program to generate a book using all of this neural probability network. Right? You're just asking a robot to do something for you. It's so weird seeing my former high school teacher talk about women's strange taste for Minotaur porn. Yeah. And now it's rare. Mainstream is bad, mostly independent. You have a better chance of finding good stories like David's books. I disagree. So I'm just going to be real with you. Tax got some wicks. I appreciate that sentiment. You found me probably through YouTube, not through Amazon. So let's make that clear, right? You probably did not find my book on Amazon. Rather, I learned a long time ago that I have to push people into Amazon to buy the book. And it's actually important that you buy the book on Amazon, because when I push people in there, there's that social proof, right? There's a bunch of stars there, and those stars tell people that other people like the book, therefore they should like it. So, but I think the indie world in general, if you were to take 10 traditionally published books and 10 random indie books that are all bestsellers, I would put my money on which one's going to be higher average quality. The traditional published books are still going to be higher average quality because there's a lot more filters they go through in order to get published. You can have a best-selling book that's blank. You can have a best-selling book that's terrible. Like, it being best-selling doesn't mean jack squat because people are retarded. That's my whole point. They don't see Joshua Bell playing violin and think, wow, I'm seeing a rare talent. They're like, there's some guy playing violin. The noise goes in one ear, out. I don't pay attention. I don't understand the music because it doesn't have a convict mumbling into a microphone. Why would I listen to that? That's your average human. He's low, okay? He likes what you tell him to like. He likes what is approved in his social matrix. So you got to figure out how to get that social matrix approval. That's our task. Is figuring out how to break out of the ghettos that we're in. Anyway. Yeah, I was catfished by Bossa Nova playlist and it was all AI. I thought I found something I never heard, but I was fooled. Yeah, I found this on YouTube too. Is like I'll put on like, like a lo-fi playlist to have noise, just to have give me some like low interest music in the background while I do some tasks. So I like the lo-fi music, and I'll be listening to like, this sounds really repetitive and bad all of a sudden. And I look it up and it has transitioned from an old playlist from like 2015 to like an AI generated video. And it sounds like shit. I mean, it doesn't sound bad, but like I get brought out of my fugue state. I get brought out of like I'm in the zone. I'm like, what is this? This doesn't sound very interesting or good, or like there's nothing to it. It sounds completely bland. Like, it's so bland it makes me pay attention to it, and then I'm like, oh, it's AI. This channel put up like 20 of these videos today. It's just AI crap. No wonder it's like, it's so boring. I noticed it, if that makes any sense. There's no emotion to it at all. Any thoughts on the K-pop Demon Hunter phenomenon? I haven't watched it, so I have no thoughts other than yeah, I know there's hype. I know my neighbor's kid is into it. I myself am going on the serial fiction route. I'm nearing 100 followers. My isekai web novel, Fragmented World on Royal Road. No AI was used in the writing of my web novel either. Yeah, what's the point? It's, if you don't write it, like, the point is it's you doing it. It's your thing. It's what you think about. It's you making that connection with another person. Having the AI do it is like, I view my writing as exactly the same thing as a piece of fucking plastic. Just injection molded plastic garbage. Have some pride, guys. Have some pride as an artist. Don't decide that your product is just replaceable, interchangeable crap. All right, like, your book is not a Big Mac. Okay, your book should be something special. It's from you to another person. Make it special. There's a 2002 Al Pacino movie called Simone, about a movie producer who creates a digital actress and passes her off as real. I don't remember that one. I probably didn't watch it, but it's a cool idea. Amazing being a Final Fantasy fan, playing 4 through 8 and then seeing that movie. You're like, I saw it. I was like, what does this have to do with Final Fantasy? But it was certainly interesting. I think it bankrupted Squaresoft, and I think that happened. Emily Blunt's reaction to Tilly Norwood was, good Lord, we're screwed. That is really, really scary. Come on, agencies, don't do that. Please stop. Please stop taking away our human connection. Well, the real question is what the audience will do with it. Does the audience want to see an AI actress? I don't think they do. I think they're more into not just humanity, but the humanity is like what makes their life interesting. People read articles about Miley Cyrus because she's such a train wreck. Right? Because her life is interesting. Let's put it that way. Her life is interesting. She's not that attractive. You could have AI make a much more attractive model than Miley Cyrus without any difficulty. It's that she has this life that is interesting. The unique things about actresses is what makes me remember them. Like, what's her name? Anya Taylor-Joy. Like, she has these wide-set alien-looking eyes. It's like, I get it. She looks cool. She has a cool look to her. If you made an AI face that looked like that, people are like, it just looks weird. But somehow if it's a human being, it's like, oh, she's different. She looks different. She looks special. or Minnie Driver with that big jaw she had. She looks different. She looks special. Or the girl from Dirty Dancing, she got a nose job and never got any work anymore because she had this nose that she just had like a more curved nose, and like she got it straightened out. And I think, the nose looks more classically attractive, but she never got work after that because she didn't look like herself. She didn't look special anymore. CGI eliminated a lot of practical art disciplines. Didn't hear that kind of whining now. You do now with AI. That's true. I'm not whining about the discipline going away. It's more just like the AI slop is really slop. It's for stupid people for the most part. But it's not so much about losing the job. And it's the same thing with like book covers. We fired artists 20 years ago and replaced them with Photoshop because it was cheaper and no one gave a shit back then. No one really cared about that. But that's the focus, is like, you're taking away our jobs. You took our jobs with AI. That's not what it's about. It's about having an artistic connection with someone. It's about the art being good. And the fact is, CGI movies don't hit the way real animated movies do either. If I'm comparing an anime from the 90s, even to like a digitally drawn anime from the 2000s, it just hits different in the 90s. And if I'm comparing something like Ghost in the Shell to like a CG animated movie, like the Ghost in the Shell has so much more to it because of its approach to animation. There's extra layers to real art, So it's not so much about people like losing their jobs, right? That's going to happen. It's more like, and if you talk to people who are in the animation industry, it's not like they're great artists working so hard. They're monkeys. Like, oh, I have to animate Sonic doing this move. It's not like they're excited. It's like they feel like slaves because they're underpaid and overworked. They have to work really long hours and they don't get paid great for it. And it's not to be great artists. It's not like, I'm making my masterpiece. I'm painting the Sistine Chapel ceiling. It's like, no, I'm making Sonic the Hedgehog do this. That's what you're doing. And that's cool, I guess. It's a job, but it's not, I've only met like one or two people that ever worked in the animation industry. I've never seen anyone online that expressed artistic satisfaction from like doing digital animation. It's a skill and it's a job that you do, Do you think Publisher Rocket is still worth it now? I don't know. I haven't even launched Publisher Rocket in like a year and a half. I think Publisher Rocket was always selling smoke, though. I'll be honest. I have it. I paid for it. I think it's an interesting interface for looking at trends on Amazon. But I think it's always selling smoke. This idea that you're going to do this market research based on these keywords and that you can then write the book that plugs into those keywords perfectly and people will magically buy it. I don't think I think you're missing that. There's always like an element of luck that goes with it. And you have to be outside Amazon and push people in to get those first sales. So marketing is so much more than just Amazon. I think it could be useful, but I think the idea of what people sell with this, that they're going to do this and it doesn't work out. And the other thing is there's so much lying that goes on in the indie book space about sales. I don't trust anyone besides me. I trust me and I don't trust anyone else. And the big reason is that I think most people are lying. I think just it's an industry full of liars. Sorry. So if somebody's saying my method will sell you books, well, no, you're trying to sell me on the method. I don't believe your method will actually sell books. You're in the author services area at that point. Or let me think of it this way. A lot of authors will just lie about how many books they sold. They will buy a bestseller. They pay a marketing agency to get them number one. And that marketing agency will bring reviews over. They're paying for reviews. They will have bots click through the Kindle Unlimited to rank up the book. They'll buy copies of the book. So it's all fake. You paid $5,000 and you have a bestseller. It's all fake. It's not real. No one read your book. And the proof in the pudding is in the eating. Is that we're talking about the Morning Glory Milky Farm semen thing, and like the only reason we're talking about that is because it's so weird. It's such a weird thing that people would read. Your average indie author who's like, I have a best-selling sci-fi book and I sold, and they just will say a number. I'm like, okay, you have zero cultural penetration with that bestseller. Zero. No one knows it. Nothing happens with it. It's so rare for anything to happen, to move out of the indie space into anything else. It's just like, you have a better chance of winning the lottery. You can apply the term prompter just as much to AI artists and AI composers. I agree. Yeah, they're just prompters. Yep, I agree. Weird and funny how gleeful they get about AI will replace all forms of creativity. They're excited about it because it's something they can do. They could tell a computer to do a thing. And they could feel good about being on the edge of something. But like, I don't know. We never had a shortage of art. It's not like, man, there's not enough art. We need to mechanize this. We had too much art as it was. Guilty of discovering via Star Wars review, but I bought some of your books. I appreciate that. I really, really do. My point, though, is that probably didn't find me on Amazon. Your Elric video was my first, I think. Yep. That's a great way to market. You could talk about Elric, and then here's my books that are like Elric. It's a great way to market. So I have lots of videos on how to do that if you're an author. You make content that's related to your target audience, and then maybe they'll buy your book. Spotify's been uploading a ton of AI music. I'm out of time now, so that they can make pure profit without paying royalties to artists. Yep. That's what it's exactly what I said they would do. Did I not say that they would do this several months ago? I said the next step is you won't have artists prompting. You'll just have they'll just have the service directly. So Spotify will just directly do that. They'll just make it directly for people. And you'll have the same thing with books. It's like Amazon their AI will just make you the book you want. And there won't be an author using AI. There won't be a prompter who's as a middleman trying to collect money as if he's actually writing a book. People will just get the AI directly from the service. As an artist, it's true. There was too much art and access to art already. Globalized market and social media killed it before AI. I agree completely. And it's the same thing with books. AI didn't kill indie fiction. Indie fiction was killed by itself. It self-immolated. It self-seppukued when it's like, you have the freedom to write whatever you want. And they're like, I'm going to write the most genre slop that's ever been written. And we're going to do it 1 billion times over. And that's all anyone will read. And it's like, that's our response to freedom, is to make the worst crap imaginable. You have a better chance of getting something original with traditional publishing. That's an unfortunate truth. And I say chance. I'm like, if you're selecting randomly, you're going to find more crazy original stuff that's independently published. But that's outsider art. Like, I make outsider art, right? My music is very outsider art. So I'm aware of what I'm talking about. Outsider art at that point, not indie publishing industry. I'm talking about outsider art. And you're going to find it there, but you're mostly going to find a lot of crap. That's unfortunate. We need better filters. And so Barnes & Noble, turns out people are coming back to Barnes & Noble because they can't find the books they want on Amazon. Hey, authors, you killed the goose that laid the golden egg. You got to figure out the next step. And so for me, that next step is, first of all, taking a step back from indie publishing and focusing on music and doing other things that are different for a little bit. And probably the next step will be going more towards direct sales and not worrying. I really want people to buy things on Amazon because I think it produces that social proof that I was talking about. There's a lot of advantages to doing that. But trying to play the Amazon algorithm game is really stupid at this point. You're much better trying to think outside the box and trying to find someone from somewhere else and then try to funnel them over to your book sales, wherever those are. Much better strategy. You're going to do a lot better with that now. And I have. That's what I've done this year, right? I did the Kickstarter instead of going direct to Amazon. I could have gone direct to Amazon, and the problem with going direct to Amazon would have been I couldn't produce as cool a product for people, but also it just would have gotten buried. The algorithm wouldn't have helped me at all. I would have done all the same amount of work, but just for like less money at the end of the day. So, yeah. You think the AI rush can eventually lead to a revival of people going to the theater in bigger numbers? I think that is possible. If we're looking at the resurgence of Barnes & Noble, is that if people are tired of you get kind of exhausted of like the short form crap, yeah, I could see people coming back to theaters for the more immersive, longer form experience. It's a deeper, better experience at a cinema than like watching. So like you can watch 100 TikToks or you can go to the cinema. Now, which one will give you a more meaningful, lasting experience? The cinema will. Which one will be a more stimulating experience? The TikToks. Therein lies the problem. And I don't know how to overcome that problem. But I think maybe people are going to be capable of making choices to be like, they'll just get burned out on TikTok. They'll get burned out on like, I'm tired of short form videos. I want something else. Maybe. We'll find out. Anyway, I'm out of time. I think they would be more alienating. AI used to deliver an individual experience. Each person sits at home and watches a unique movie. Yeah, but I think people get tired of that because, so imagine you have your favorite meal every single time. You just get tired of that. And it's the same thing with algorithms in general. So the robot in general does this with content people already make that's not AI, which is it just shows you more of what you've watched before. So before long, you're just in a funnel of the same shit over and over again. And you have to take action to break out of that funnel when you're bored of it. Okay. So if you feel bored, that's a sign to you. Oh, I'm bored of this. I'm bored. Do something else. Say, oh, why am I bored? Why is this boring? I've seen too much of this. Let's do something different that I haven't done before. Let's start a new YouTube account that is fresh and won't show me the same crap over and over again. And just go from there. And you'll probably be pretty surprised how much of a difference it can make in your experience. Is there incentive to create true art anymore when the monoculture has been atomized? Artistry has an aspect of sacrifice. People right now seem to chase the material reward before mastering the craft. So I think that's the indie fiction market. They focus on the material reward because there are no other rewards. Right? If you're writing genre slop, there's no spiritual reward because you're not producing anything worth reading. You're not producing anything that's intended to be deep or to push boundaries or to make people think. So you're just making a product. So the material is the only thing you can focus on. You can't get awards because you're indie fiction. You can't get prestige as indie fiction except through money. So the material becomes the main focus. Like I made money in this industry. My usual response is, I don't believe you. I don't believe that you made money because most people don't make money unless they're selling things to authors. It's like, I don't believe that. And then, so what? So what? Have you done something great? You know, Vince Offer sold ShamWows and made some money. Did he do something great for humanity? Besides get bit by a hooker in Florida? No. Yeah. All right, that's it. Take it easy, guys. I will see you all next time. Have a great, great day. Let's get some music going here. What do we do? Oh, something a little different here. We're going old school. Something from 2018. There's no indie clout from writing good stuff. It's a very small group of people that are into the good stuff, my friend. But you have to think about who you're in. Like if you go to a garden party, if you go to your block party, people care about the fact that you're an author for about 5 seconds, and then they're on to the next thing, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But people who are into books are just not. You're not going to give you prestige. You're not going to get awards. It's all locked down in the industry, unfortunately. There's fake awards. You can get lots of fake awards as an indie. You'll see them all the time. Reader's Choice Award. It's just a fake award. People you buy those awards just like you buy the reviews. It's all fake. It's all fake. They're so fake, guys. So just have your filter high for the fakeness. If you see awards on there and the award is not an award, it's not a Dragon Award. I'm going to have a Dragon Award winner on next month, Brian Niemeyer. He's actually won a Dragon Award. It's not nominated, Hugo Award winning, Hugo nominated, Nebula Award, right? Like those awards actually meant something at one point. Maybe they don't mean anything now, but there's nothing outside of them that's meaningful either. So like if you see Reader's Choice Award, that's just fake award. And you read the reviews. You're like, oh, these are a bunch of fake reviews that say nothing. They were bought by, it's just Chinese accounts. User 1. Bob Smith says, great book. I enjoyed it. Then you look at the ranking sales. This person ranked up really high. Those could be fake too. Just a click farm, clicking through KU, Kindle Unlimited stuff to rank it up. You just pay money for it. You could pay a couple $100 and get your book ranked up to number 1. Maybe I should do that, Then I could say I'm a best-selling author. I actually am a best-selling author, and I have had the orange tag on books, and I've been number 1 in categories like without doing that stuff, which is hard to get like a category number 1. I had a category number 1 randomly happen. It was like Prophet of the God Seed was like number 1 in some sci-fi category for like a weekend. Sold 1,000 copies. And then the sales dropped off a cliff and I didn't sell another copy again for like a month. I was like, what happened? I don't know. The robot was like, told a bunch of people to read the book that weekend and they did. I don't know. Sometimes weird shit happens. Yeah, anyway, I appreciate everybody watching. The rant on I'm ranting about it's all fake. It's just like anything else on the internet. Don't trust it. Look a little deeper, please. Okay? Have a great one. I love you all. Let me link some stuff. Patreon. Support me on Patreon. There's some books you get for Patreon membership. So check those out. What else? The Substack. That's a good one. I'm going to be publishing a little story for you guys. About someone time traveling to like a cyberpunk 1930s Nazi Germany. You guys might like it. Might not. I don't know. But I'm writing it because I think it'll be fun. All right. Check you all next time. Have a great day.